Welcome to Vintage Variety. Today's content is about Saphirete and Saphirene jewelry. If you're new to collecting or if you aren't familiar with this type of jewelry, this content is going to be great for adding to your knowledge. I've seen a lot of pieces of jewelry listed online where the seller refers to them as Saphirete, Saphirene. And I've also noticed that there are quite a few collectors that refer to them the same way. Hardcore collectors will definitely argue with you on that point because there is a difference. There's a difference historically of when these pieces of jewelry were made, and there's also a great difference when it comes to the value of the pieces. I'm going to start out with Saphirete. Saphirete is Czech. It was made in Koblenz in the early 19th century. This would have been during the Victorian era, on up into the 1930s. These stones were made by infusing cobalt or blue-colored glass with real gold. Often when you run across Saphirete jewelry, it will be set in a simple base metal such as brass, and sometimes the pieces will be gold-plated. Although these pieces are costume jewelry, many of them antique costume jewelry, they often go for hundreds up to thousands of dollars. I heard tell of perers going for much more than fine jewelry would sell for. They stopped making Saphirete glass simply because it was not economical. Legend says that the recipe for making this beautiful glass was lost over time. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Safferine. Safferine was made in Germany, and it's believed that they were trying to reproduce Saphirete. And I feel like they came pretty close when you look at two examples side by side. Saphirete is often referred to as the cousin or the sister of Safferine. Often you'll run across Saphirene stones set into pieces from the 1950s and the 1960s. Sadie Green, for example, did some really beautiful pieces of jewelry that were cameo jewelry back in the 1970s, and they were done using Saphirene stones. A few other companies that I've seen Saphirene stones in are Weiss, Regency, and Florenza. Now that I've told you a little bit about the stones and the difference between the two, I'm going to show you some pieces that I own. This first piece of jewelry is Edwardian, and the stones in it are Saphirettes. This is the only piece of Saphirete jewelry that I own. Reason being is it is very hard to find, and when you do find it, it is extremely expensive. Just a small pin like this one can run into the hundreds of dollars. That's why it's important as a collector and as a seller to know the difference between the two. Now, just looking at this stone, it doesn't look like anything spectacular. It looks like a mauvish brown stone with a dull frosted top coating. But when the light hits the stone, that's when you can really see how spectacular it is. It's almost as though it changes colors and it glows. Even now when the light is hitting it indirectly, you can see the beautiful glow in it. This little brooch has a C clasp and a rounded hinge. This piece that's wrapped around it, this is actually a wire. I also have red stones set into this. This is more of a small bar pin type brooch. One thing that I have noticed when it comes to Saphirete is that a lot of the stones have that dull or matte finish on them. Most of the stones, or rather many of the stones that I've seen, have been just simple cabochons. I'm going to hold this in my hand up to the light one more time so you can get a really good look at it. You can see how this stone just glows when the light hits it. This is a book I've shown in previous content when I was talking about Czech jewelry. This book is called Baubles, Buttons, and Beads, The Heritage of Bohemia. And there are a few pictures of Saphirete in it that I wanted to show you guys today. Here we have a necklace, and you can see how the light's hitting it. It has that blue glow to it. This is a large brooch. Here we have another brooch. And most of these stones, the light's hitting them, but I feel like they have that kind of dull finish on them. Most of these pieces are listed in the book as being from the earlier part of the 20th century. The necklace above is listed as being from the 1930s. The brooches that you see here at the bottom of the page, they're listed as being much older, from the 19th century. This next piece has a Safferine stone set into it. This is a large Victorian Revival brooch. It has been verified as being an unsigned Florenza. Many pieces of Florenza jewelry were not signed. You can kind of see the similarities in the color. It has that mauvish brown color. This stone, of course, has a shiny finish on it. As I've already mentioned, not all, but many Saphirets had a matte finish. So that's one thing to keep in mind. When I hold this close to a light so that you can see it, you can see the glow inside of it. Everyone has their opinion about these stones, but to me, I do not feel like this one is quite the showstopper as the tiny Saphirines that I showed earlier. This next brooch is also unsigned. I believe that it may very well be Regency, but I'm not sure. This has a combination of stones. The clearer looking stones that you see here, I believe these are opaline glass, a glass that was made to resemble opals. These stones, I believe, are Safferine. When I block the light, you can see how dull these look. These look almost a greenish tint. The light hits these stones. Of course, you can see a lot of different colors in them. They have that purplish mauve tone, and then they have a greenish color within them. I also wanted to show these pieces today. I feel like they're relevant to the content that I'm doing. Earlier, I mentioned the cameo pieces that were done by Sadie Green. Sadie Green did a lot of vintage reproduction jewelry, Victorian Revival, back during the 1970s. She used a lot of old stones and old components. I've often seen pieces of her cameo jewelry listed online, described as being safaret. I've also seen them described as being pieces that were made using very old Czech stones. I'm not so sure that I agree with that. I believe that the pieces were most likely made using Safferine. And I wanted to show these pieces as an example. You can see with the bracelet and one of the earrings that the light's not hitting them, so they look very flat and dull. But here on this necklace pendant, where the light is hitting it, it glows. I moved the bracelet around so the light reflects off of it. It also has that glow. I believe that these stones are probably a type of Safferine, and I think they were probably made in Germany using the same methods, just with different colors. I could be wrong on this, but that's what I believe these to be. They don't really look like Aurora Borealis. They don't have all these different colors. When I move this around, it glows kind of a yellowish amber orange color, and then straight down when the light's not hitting it, you can see it looks a brownish black. I put these two side by side so you guys can get a really good look at them. The Safferine stone in the Florenza brooch is a lot more shinier, whereas the Saphirete is a lot duller. Another thing to watch out for if you're looking for these pieces online is that a lot of sellers don't really know what Saphirete and Saphirene stones are. I've seen pieces listed as being Saphirete, and when I looked closely at the pictures, it turned out to be things like moonstones, Aurora Borealis glass, but not actual Saphirete or Safferine. Take a few minutes to announce the winners of my subscriber appreciation giveaway. I did 2 giveaways this time: a cameo brooch by 1928 and also a tasseled pearl and spinel necklace. I announced the winners earlier in the week in a community post, but just in case you guys didn't see that, my winners were Judy Loftus, Kate from Timeless Charm by Kate. Judy won the tasseled necklace, and Kate won the cameo. If you are watching this content, definitely send me an email with your mailing address and your full name so I can get your prize out to you. As a collector, it's important to be able to identify these stones and to tell the difference between the two. I hope this content has been informative and that it will help you add to your knowledge about collecting vintage and antique jewelry. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to share these items with me. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications on more content about collecting vintage and antique items. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.